Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Belly to Belly. And we're here with great friend Dan Sawko from Shipshape.vc. How are you, Dan?
Hey, Bill. Yeah, great to see you again. And yeah, doing really well. Close of summer in Europe, so people are starting to come back to the office. But yeah, it's been a very interesting summer, doing lots of engagement and activity with lots of US clients and partners. It's been really, really good.
That's fun. And you're coming to the US in a couple of weeks, so we can't wait to see you when you're here. So we're here to talk about kind of how companies expand to the US and how they can be successful. And before we kind of hop into that, do you mind just taking a moment and talking a little bit about what Shipshape.vc does in particular to help companies as they expand to the US?
Of course. So a bit of background about Shipshape.vc. So we're a free-to-use investment search engine. So what we do is we go out to the web, we aggregate data and present it in a contextually useful format so that founders can really cut down on their investor research time. They know very quickly which funds and potentially even which partners at those funds they should be engaging with as they're building essentially interest in their funding round. So yeah, it's built for founders, helps them save loads of time, and it's free.
Yeah, every founder I talk to talks about, the idea of sending out meeting with 100 investors to essentially get one or two meetings, and the ratio is not good.
Yeah, I think one of the big problems / realizations that founders go through on that journey is that fundamentally fundraising is a sales exercise, and you want to make sure that you're marketing the product that you're selling, which is it's quite a complicated product. It's not just the product that your business is building; it's the business itself, which is of which the product that the business is building is only part of, and it's a moving picture, and therefore actually, if you're going to spend the time of explaining this complex product, even though the investors are used to buying complex pieces of complex products called equity in your business, even though they're used to that, actually the fact is that you've got to spend a fair amount of time with each investor to build that comfort, that confidence in investing in your business. And therefore, actually, the dynamics here that are important for a founder are making sure that you're spending the most amount of time but with the audience that's most likely to buy that piece of equity.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you got to targeting is critically important. So yeah, no, that's great. So thinking about companies that are expanding to the US, as you're, seeing companies use your platform, and obviously you're a big part of the ecosystem, where do you see kind of the biggest challenges in terms of where companies struggle as they expand?
So I think there are a number of different ways of looking at this. But first of all is to bear in mind what a fund's mandate is. And by mandate, what I mean is the types of companies that they're allowed to invest in. And so, for example, lots of funds will have geographic restrictions on where they can deploy capital, which is one of the reasons why you see lots of companies doing essentially what's called a Delaware flip, which is essentially where they establish a US entity as the parent company within a group. And that's a very common way that companies can essentially be open to receiving investment from funds that are US based and can only invest in US assets, essentially. So that's, I think, one of the things that founders need to bear in mind. There are other funds that do invest across borders and have that mandate to do so, but those aren't as common as those that are going to invest only domestically. So yeah, founders bearing in mind that actually a fund might need them to set up a US entity is something that's really important. So, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the company needs to have a US entity today, but actually knowing that you might have to set one up as part of that conversation is something that's really important to bear in mind. So rather than engaging a US fund and then just saying, oh, sorry, we're a UK entity, actually saying, well, we're a UK entity today, but we've already engaged with advisors who are going to help us with the Delaware flip, or actually there are some products out there that help you do it really, really quickly. That's something that a founder can have essentially in the back of their pocket to sort of say, actually, today, no, but actually as part of a transaction process, we would do this. And I think that then opens them up to a far greater sort of marketplace of potential investors.
So just like a sales process, learning the objections and finding the path to overcoming those objections.
100%. And
Yeah.
I think there's also, like with other markets too, knowing which investors are actually relevant within that market is also the other part of that. Because actually, if you're a founder coming from outside the US, you're seeking to raise capital in the US, actually you've got another hurdle that you might need to get over. And there are a number of ways of handling this objection, which is how much of your revenue is coming from the US. So that's again something which founders I think should bear in mind, is that the higher your US revenue is, the easier it is for a US fund to build conviction in investing in your company, because ultimately there's a degree of influence that the fund might be able to have over your potential success in that market. And you can get over that sort of proof point that's going to be required by simply having US customer base already there.
Well, and what you're saying kind of brings up another question, which is, obviously investors come in many different flavors and types and value propositions. Kind of the two big categories, at least in my head, are sort of pure money investors and then strategic investors. I guess as you see companies, how do companies kind of make those decisions in terms of kind of when to look at either in terms of being the best choice?
So I think that fits into what a company's, I suppose, roadmap or business plan and strategy is. So sometimes a big part of whether or not your business is going to be successful or not is looking at things like distribution, or indeed who's going to be helping you drive your innovation roadmap. And strategic investors can be really helpful on both of those, as long as you know that actually you're strapped in for the long haul and it's going to be potentially a long journey with them, and ultimately that you're essentially getting married to a long-term partner in either instance. Only one is purely motivated largely by the financial return. The other one might have other elements to that relationship in terms of the amount of control that they want to exert and influence that they want to have over, not just your distribution, but also where your innovation roadmap is going to lead. So I think bearing in mind whether or not you're likely to be aligned, not just today, but also in 5-10 years time, that's something that I think is really important when founders are assessing what type of investor they should be partnering up with. And there are great advantages to both. One is more flexible in theory. The other one actually can potentially take you further.
Right. Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And obviously it's like most things, I suppose, right? That it depends. It depends on a variety of factors, and you have to kind of look at goals and assets and resources and so on, and kind of figure out what's best.
And I think a lot of that can depend on the industry as well. So if you're in aerospace and defense as a European company coming into the US and trying to make it on your own, I think it's far more challenging than if, for example, you were to sign a joint venture with Lockheed Martin. That becomes a lot easier to get on certain sort of procurement within certain procurement groups, etc., that they give you that sort of ability to access and actually tap into the market that you're really targeting. So I think it does. Whereas if you're building a SaaS product, distribution still matters, but you might not need to get so tightly engaged and involved for the long haul.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be together on September 29th in London for an event called Gateway to Growth, expanding your business to the USA. And we've got a few panelists, you and I among them. And thinking about that event, are there and we have a immigration attorney, we've got accounting, we've got sort of business consulting, and then you and I in there. What is it? You think about the companies coming. What is it you hope companies get out of that event?
I think having a checklist and be able to learn from it. I think particularly of the other panelists, what are the patterns that they've noticed that others should bear in mind before going into it? Because ultimately what you don't want to do is to learn all the lessons that others have learned the hard way yourself and with all the downside impact. So I think having that pattern recognition from advisors and specialists that have seen lots of companies attempt it and have picked up what to do, what not to do, can really save founders and businesses a lot of time and their investors' capital when they're looking at entering a new market. But what I also think is perhaps this is we obviously we've worked together and we by leveraging Meet and working together with Meet, we've really benefited from a very targeted approach from a market entry perspective. And I think fundamentally, Meet from the sort of like, how do you build your US revenue base, and Shipshape.vc with regards to how do you build your potential investor pool that you want to target. It's really about being really targeted in those approaches. And I hopefully founders come away with, okay, here's how I make sure that I'm not burning capital time on pursuing the wrong opportunities and being focused and structured in that approach. Again, with the idea of actually you've got a surer path to growth and a higher growth trajectory as a result of that initial structured approach.
Yeah, well, and as success creates success too, I think in kind of what we see as well. And yeah, no, it's amazing how in US parlance anyway, base hits just get and if you get some good base hits on the sales side, it helps on the investing side. If you get some success on the investing side, it helps on the sales side. So it's kind of both really can work together very well. It seems.
Well, and learning American, I think, is the other one that I've definitely been picking up and learning, whether that's by email and your email etiquette and how quickly you respond, all the way through to the type of lexicon, or dropping the sort of like dropping the th if you put in like that you want to meet on the 12th, just put 12 or, for example, like that sort of stuff is all of these tips and tricks that if you're going in for the first time, you just have no idea. But actually, it's one of the easy ways of building trust with someone that actually you understand the US market.
Yeah, no, it's very small but very simple things sort of that kind of help that process. This has been fantastic, Daniel, and I will certainly put in the description below all the information on the event on the 29th. Is it okay if we include your contact information as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Very happy to speak with any companies that want to know about. We're still reasonably early on in our US journey, but we have got a US revenue, we've got a growing US customer base, and we're speaking with investors out in the States. So yeah, very happy to have a conversation with anyone who'd like to have a chat. And it's been, by the way, but I also just want to reference as well, like it's been fantastic working with yourself and the team with actually how we're approaching doing that.
Cool. Well, same back to you. So it's I'm glad we're able to help. It makes a lot of fun. But thank you for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill. See you soon.